So I think about the world as the opportunity of trust. I think that's what we heard in the prior presentation, and I think that's a theme that we're going to hear for a very long time in all walks of life, in all ways we think about it, in really every dimension. So, about me, do you have a clicker? Is that clicker somewhere? Oh, here it is. Yeah, thank you. What you should know about me, I spent 11 years at Pacific Telesis Group, 8 years at the directory business, did a lot of stuff in sales. I actually had some of my greatest experiences actually selling advertising to people, small businesses. 2 years of consulting and 12 years with BIA Kelsey. And I also was born in this place called Cleveland, Ohio, grew up in Los Angeles, and that's a little bit more about me. BIA Kelsey, who knows of BIA or the Kelsey Group? Some of you know. So we were bought 2 years ago by a company called BIA, which is now called BIA Kelsey. This is what we do. We cover the local advertising marketplace. And we see that as ultimately all advertising dollars will have some sort of local dimension to it because it will be geo-targeted, it will be more relevant. And so we think of the world as this $600 billion of advertising that will all have some geo or some location connection to it. We have a bunch of analysts, and we're always available. Who are the kinds of people we help? We help yellow page companies, newspapers, classifieds, broadcasters, and whatnot. And we have a conference in San Francisco, Santa Clara, Silicon Valley. So these are some of the speakers that will be there. I know that there's an offer to you all for, I think it's a $200 or $300 promotion, so please join us if you're interested. I think there's a promotion code. You can go to the website, BIA Kelsey or the Kelsey Group. There's a great list. This is just a sample list of the speakers. We're actually trying to get Marissa Meyer, who's now responsible for local at Google, and Todd Rowe, who manages all their global sales channels. So it's going to be a very exciting conference. The confluence of Facebook. You see we have somebody, Emily White, Senior Director of Facebook. And we run some other conferences. Traditional media is still dominant in local ad spending. Online is just about 7%. The money, but not the use. And in the United States, we've seen this slide before, classifieds as a business, print classifieds as a business, on a very deepward decline. And that's true in a certain extent for yellow pages as well, though this includes some online dollars. But if you looked at yellow page revenues around the world, print yellow page revenues, they're declining 14, 15%. I think some of the biggest U.S. publishers like AT&T declined upwards of 20, 25% in the last couple of years. It's kind of a free fall. And publishers are reacting to that in many different ways, social, mobile, local. But importantly, they're reacting to it by offering performance models. In a city called Phoenix, Arizona. How many of you heard of Phoenix, Arizona? Very large center, very large populous market. They're going to completely performance model in that business. Completely performance model. Pay for performance. So what's the mission for classifieds? Create a local experience that facilitates a habit. The greatest challenge I think we all have in our businesses is to get people to come back regularly to us. Whether it's a classified site or a yellow pages site, or in our case, a business analyst site. What we have to do is create habitual behavior, get people to come back more often and more often. We do that with likes. We do that with connections to people outside of our individual business by reaching out across the network. Host the best place you can buy and sell, where you can see everything and post everywhere, and move from a listings mentality to a marketplaces mentality. Success factors for classifieds media in the next generation: content, content, content. articles, or user-generated content in the context of that targeted community. Content makes ads relevant. Community, engaging with that community, targeted to a geography. Hello Metro boosted its usage by 10% by sorting at an appropriate neighborhood level. Make it relevant. Promotions. So earlier the speaker talked about Groupon and Deal a Day. Facebook yesterday announced their deals in Facebook. So, it's not going to be lost on anybody that Facebook is running very aggressively at the promotion space, at the deal space. But I have a question for all of you. How many of you actually actually go and download or participate in the Groupon thing in a substantive way? Once or twice a week? How many people do that? So very few actually are doing all these coupons and Groupon things. I think we're all observing what's going on, but I'm not sure that there's tremendous use of this yet. Sure, the 400 example in San Francisco, one of our analysts, his personal trainer got 420 new customers, new clients through their Groupon thing. But this person couldn't handle 420 new personal training sessions. So what did that person do? Who wants to take a guess? Anybody want to take a guess what they did? They resold those leads to other personal trainers. They're a lead aggregator. They were the first to do it. They went up, they put up their Groupon thing. They got 420 responses. They could barely fulfill all that. They turned those over to other personal trainers that they knew. Very interesting what's going on. They were an aggregator. So, there are old rules, new rules. They're all fuzzy rules. It's all converging. This is, I think, how the world used to look. Fairly separate spheres. Promotion sat over there. Classified sat over there. Directories sat over there. I think it's pretty clear that this is the way the world looks a lot more today. They're all commingled. They're all integrating. It's not clear what is a directory or what is a classified and what is a promotion. They're all sort of blending together, and they're all wrapped around this notion of social. They're all wrapped around some social connections, some social networking, some like buttons, some connection buttons, some RSS feeds, some friends and family, all that stuff that makes all these things more interesting because somebody participated, we know, or somebody promoted it, or some friend of ours told us about it. On the consumer side, we run a bunch of consumer and small business research. This was the number of media uses by consumers over the course of 3 years when looking for information in their local market. They went from using 5.6 back in Q1 2007 to Q1 2010, 7.9 uses of information. It's fragmenting, and this is very clear data of that, and so how do you get in front of that? How do you make sure you're participating? Microblogging, ratings and reviews, social networks, location-based services. These are all dimensions that are going to change the media landscape, the local media landscape, over the next, I would say 10 years, maybe longer. There are risks to the Facebook the juggernaut that's out there. One massive privacy issue could sink that business in the space of a couple months. They're going to have to be very diligent and vigilant about the privacy issues. Twitter. This is a story about a guy in San Francisco who sells crepes. His cart moves from place to place in downtown San Francisco, and the only way his customers know about where he's going to be is through his Twitter account. His crepes may not even be that good, but there's a whole massive following. And he'd say, I would love to say that I just had a really good idea and strategy, but Twitter has been essential to my success. He quit his day job as a carpenter to continue in this business of being a crepe provider. He's got 5,400 followers, very targeted, very local. He doesn't need advertising in the traditional sense. He just needs to make sure his followers know exactly where he's going to be every day of the week. We also track a lot of small and medium-sized businesses and what they're doing. And this slide tracks use of Twitter, the curve on the bottom, and use of print yellow pages. And what you see is, we could have drawn this ourselves sort of intuitively, but this is data. If you're a business between 0 and 3 years of age, you're just as likely to use print yellow pages as you are to use Twitter. And then as those curves go out, you can see they get more traditional in their use of media, less traditional in their use of media. And I think it's interesting to look at Yelp's inquiry flow. Yelp may have made, in some of our opinions, perhaps the single biggest financial non-decision when they decided not to be bought by Google for $500 million, probably earlier this year. Offered $500 million, and they walked away from that deal because they thought they could drive that business more successfully. We think that's really suspect, that they're going to be able to get outside of their core audience, which in the U.S. are restaurant users, perhaps some nightlife. This would suggest that it's a little bit more evolved than that, but we don't think that there are a whole lot of people going on to Yelp, writing reviews on Yelp, or going to Yelp for core services such as plumbers or roofers. That's a very small part of that business. They turned away $500 million. And I'm not going to spend much time on Facebook because I think we're going to talk about Facebook throughout most of the conference because it is the big juggernaut that's looming out there. But we've estimated that there are 2 million small businesses with fan pages on Facebook. That's probably 4 million by now. And it may be even larger than that. So small and medium-sized businesses are recognizing they need to be there, but at the end of the day, most of these businesses aren't going to really know how to utilize this stuff. That is the role of an intermediary. That is the role of a publisher or a participant or one of your companies. Is these small and medium-sized businesses, even the crepe guy, most of these people are going to worry about their core business. They're going to worry about what they do every day, whether it's fix roofs or make crepes or sell cars or sell real estate, and they're going to need somebody to help them figure out what all this confusion and complexity means. That is the role for many of you in this room. That is the role that where you can help them understand how all this is going to work together, how to get a Facebook page, what to do with that Facebook page. That is the core responsibility of everybody in this room, ultimately, in our opinion. These small and medium-sized businesses, this is not about, they're not going to become experts in social media. That's not their job. Their job is to be experts in whatever service or whatever they deliver to their end consumers. The job of publishers, the job of intermediaries is to help them through that. Social sites have been developing social classifieds as I think Duncan will talk about later today. I think it's today, right? Later today from Oodle, what they're doing in the marketplaces thing with Facebook. Lots of interesting stuff going on there. So this whole media stuff is in massive transition. It was really nice once upon a time when the media world looked like this. There were nice little silos. We could all remain in our nice little huts. The advertisers knew exactly what each media did. It was very easy. You signed a contract. It was very simple, very straightforward. There are no boundaries anymore. It's all interactive local media, and it's all going from awareness and directional to geo-targeted and transactional. And so classifieds needs to embrace this marketplaces model. Social media content development, reputation management, pay-for-performance models. These are things that are going to start to become more important over time. Local advertising budgets have largely been oriented around products and sales. Now SMBs are doing the same thing we all are trying to figure out, is engagement and optimization. SMBs want engagement on the one hand in social construct, and they want optimization in the context of search. They want to be the first organic result in search. Very hard to do. That's a role that they're not going to figure out on their own. SMBs are getting digital. We keep tracking this trend. This is U.S. numbers, annual spend, $2,000. 22% of that money is spent online. 62% have websites or a profile page. They're spending $800 a year on a website, and 43% use SEO. So they're all starting to get this, but it's all very confusing. This is our tracking study of SMBs. In 2008, traditional media, this is use of, not spend. More SMBs still use traditional media than digital media, and that shifted in wave 13. We're in the midst of running wave 14. So we expect these curves to continue in the direction they're going. And these SMBs are using free Web 2.0 features. Video, Twitter, links on ads or social sites, customer ratings and reviews. So we can see there's a progression. There's a full-out trend going in this direction. But we do not believe these businesses are capable of understanding the complexity and the ramifications of all that's going on. We've now done research around heavy spenders, not just the mass of small and medium-sized businesses in the U.S., but the ones who are spending $25,000 or more per year. And they look very different. So over here is, on the left-hand bar, is the average revenue of average small and medium-sized businesses in the U.S. On the right-hand side is the average spend of those who, the average revenue, $2,670,000, of those who spend $25,000 or more per year. This is the marketplace that companies like Reach Local, who's heard of Reach Local? Okay, Reach Local is a big, is a company in the U.S., went public. They go after the top tier of advertisers around the United States, and I think in the UK and maybe Australia. They're trying to cherry pick this audience, this market. And these plus spenders, as we call them, spend $28,000 in advertising a year. Not $2,000 like the average sample, but $28,000 a year in advertising. And this is perhaps the most important thing. They use 6.5 media to advertise their business. That may mean something in Facebook that maybe is free, and that's not even counted in this. These are paid media that it's now 6.5. So they're getting their message out wherever and whenever, and they probably don't really know what's working yet. If you look at the search engine marketing statistics around the world, there's a considerable amount of churn in that marketplace because advertisers aren't really sure what they're getting. What they were led to believe is they were going to get the same number of calls they got from traditional media at a much lower price. And what they got are a lot of clicks that they're not sure are the same value as calls they might have gotten in traditional media. And so you see churn rates of 50, 60, 70% in the States around search engine marketing being sold to that they're buying. And so we're certainly seeing that's why everybody wants to figure out Facebook and search engine optimization, because SEM at this point has really not been a good experience for most of them. 97% of them have a spend on online media, and they spend $10,000, according self-reported, on a website or profile page. This might be hosting. This might be, we asked separately about SEM and SEO, but it's possible that some of that is in here as well. That's a lot of money in the marketplace. We believe that in some order of time, we're going to see basically the table stakes now in this small and medium-sized business market is the website. That is what will be sort of the center of the business, and off of that will hang whether it's a page on Facebook, whether it's search engine optimization, whether it's a print ad in a publication. That the center will be some digital content platform, and that'll probably be, essentially, it will be their website with a bunch of content poured in there. And we're seeing companies in the U.S. really accelerate the selling and provisioning of these websites, perhaps even for free, because that's going to be the sticky factor that keeps these customers as customers. And how are they making their decisions? They're making their decisions based on demonstrated media performance, and then professional advisors, and then what they hear in newspapers and in the media, and then what they might hear from a business partner or competitor. And you see all the way down at almost at the bottom are salespeople. So I talked about, the opportunity of trust. Salespeople, by definition, are there to sell. And as a consequence, it's not always clear that that's the most trusting of relationships. And so our view is that whether you're selling classifieds or whether you're selling in the directory space or any type of media, the opportunity to create a level of trust and a level of relationship that moves way beyond this notion of salesperson versus small business advertiser or advertiser in general is the most important thing that's going to go on this media landscape in the next 5 years, is establishing trust. How do you establish trust? Our view is that at some point, a media sales rep is going to go into a business and say, we've done the math, we've looked at all the calls, we've looked at all the results across all this media, and our media, let's say I'm a radio person selling, we're not going to have you run radio ads anymore because we can't deliver you the calls. But we'll put you in search engine marketing, and we have a deal and a partnership with this classified business, we'll put you in there, and we have this deal with this newspaper business, we'll put you in there. But we won't sort of force you into our media. So, local fragmentation, email maps, pay-for-performance models. All trends that are increasing and very important. Email collection, one of the most fundamental things that is going on right now. How many of you have signed up for a Starbucks card so you can use their Wi-Fi? Anybody do that? So I did it recently. Next thing I got was the email that says, here's, I'm now on their email list. Or Groupon. I get a Groupon thing every morning. I don't usually use it because it's in San Francisco. I live north of San Francisco, but I get it every morning. Building these lists is how marketers, how businesses are going to start to engage with their audience. Email marketing has, if it's opt-in and I've given you my email, much higher chance of being opened. We see trends in our data that small businesses are using email. It's the fastest growing media use, and it's the media platform that they believe delivers them the highest ROI. Why? Because it's relatively inexpensive. If you can collect the emails, addresses, you can market at a very low cost. And they believe, at least that's what they believe, is that converts very well. Maps. Maps across the marketplace. I think 5 years ago, we thought maps were going to be important. If you look at just even how Google displays their results now, maps are increasingly an important part of the search experience. And maps, they really define the geospatial place where we're at. And our ability to look at maps on our iPad or on our iPhones or on our smartphones and navigate through the physical world is truly fundamental and truly changing, because we can now know where we can buy something we want as close as to where we are. So maps are a critical element of the entire local media landscape. As I said earlier, it's all about helping these small businesses, whether they're selling cars, whether they're selling flowers, whether they're selling services. It's about helping them do this. They don't get how to do all this stuff themselves. They need helpers. They need people to help them in a collaborative way. Advertisers say they want quantifiable results, but they often don't even have the attention span to look at the usage reports. It doesn't mean you shouldn't offer them the usage reports. It doesn't mean you should hide behind the usage reports, because if you don't offer them, they're going to not trust you. So you need to offer it even though they're not using it, even though they may not pay any attention to it. And then it's going to be very critical to help them understand what conversion means and how to convert. A lot of, 5 minutes? Yeah, got it. I think I'm getting there. I can't remember, but I'll be as fast as I can. So a lot of these business owners are, you can drive them all the leads you want, you can drive them tons of calls, but they don't really even know how to convert those calls into business. So one of the challenges of these performance models is that there's this rush to deliver on a performance offer, and yet if I send you a call or if I send you a lead and you don't convert it because the caller got voicemail, or because the person who picked up the phone couldn't answer the question, or because the person who picked up the phone wasn't engaging. So there's going to be a whole host of challenges with this new model, because that's the advertiser's expecting these calls, and now they have to convert. So we think there's going to be a lot of work done in how to convert calls and how to manage the people who are answering the calls. Maybe there are even going to be call centers that are set up to take some of those calls, convert them or work them, and then send them to the ultimate business owner. There are all sorts of models that are going to develop in that space. We talked about coupons. I think it's really important to note that Facebook launched their deal thing yesterday. You can go to our blog and read about it. You can go to probably 50 blogs out there and read about it. But it is a very, it's a very important trend that's going on. As I said earlier, I don't know that small businesses will continue to be on this bandwagon. They know they want to get customers. They're not sure what the benefits are ultimately of putting up a Groupon thing and being inundated and overwhelmed to the point where they are where their core customers can't get in there anymore. Their established customers can't get an appointment or can't get a reservation or can't be seated for dinner, and they're overwhelmed and can't fulfill behind that. So very interesting what's going on with all these coupons and all these offers out there. But to the prior presentation, that's what people said they did on Facebook. They found offers and deals. Rise of Deal of the Day. There's a thing called Centered, which is running Deal a Day, which now aggregates all the deals in a marketplace. So they're a deal aggregator, and consumers can go to that deal map, I think it's called, and they can see where all the deals are in their local area from all the different players in the deal space. But as we saw here, there weren't that many hands of people who were actually executing on those deals. We also think that the phone will be a deal enabler. We won't print things off anymore. The phone will be our deal mechanism. And maybe it will be an ongoing deal over time. Reputation management. This is an area where we believe there's a tremendous opportunity. We think of reputation management in its simplest form, and that is helping businesses figure out what is being said about them out on the wild web. Whether it's in social networks or whether it's in verticals or marketplace things, what's being said about my business? Good things, bad things, and how do I react to those, and how quickly do I react to those? We're seeing tremendous take-up rate in the U.S. AT&T is selling a reputation management service. We're seeing tremendous adoption and take-up rate by businesses. think of reputation management as simply nothing more than insurance. You're selling insurance to these businesses. Because if you can alert them that somebody had a poor experience with them and they can address that quickly and manage that quickly, then they're more likely to, be able to get in front of that rather than be reacting to it all the time. Lots going on in the reputation management space. I think Duncan will talk about Oodle Pro probably later today, so I won't spend time on that. Expanding the content offerings. Tremendous amount of activity in content going on. Syndicated license, customized on top of syndicated research. Lots of stuff being developed on an original basis or inexpensive community sources. AOL has spent already probably $50 million in the US on patch. Patch is going into 50 cities, probably will be in 100 cities before they run out of money perhaps or get bought by somebody else. Perhaps the New York Times, because patch is a low-cost way to generate lots of localized content, and potentially a larger news organization like the New York Times that needs to fill out the entire dimension of news might find that interesting. But there's a ton of stuff and a ton of money being spent on content because content drives relevancy in the search world. And more publishers are focusing on ad sales plus SEO. There are a number in the states that are doing that. Yodel's a company in the states that is mirroring search engine optimization with developing content for that business so that it's married. The way you generate search engine optimization is lots more content. So there are content factories and content businesses developing in the states. Not clear how much content it takes to keep users engaged or if there's at a point of oversaturation of content. Yodel's doing it. I'll let Duncan talk about that later. I'm sure hope Duncan's here because I've been setting him up all morning. So hopefully he's here and he's ready to talk about what they're doing. Yodel's doing something similar, $400 a month to set up. NCI does the same thing, generates lots of content, wraps it around a site. Hopefully that site SEOs nicely. And Yodel is having very strong pickup of their SEO product because it's perceived as delivering perhaps a different kind of lead rather than their search engine marketing product. And I know that I don't... Okay, so here are the key takeaways. See? Perfect timing. Local market competition and complexity is increasing. Consumers and SMBs are gaining sophistication. That doesn't mean the SMB wants to be doing this all day long. It just means they're understanding that they've got to be in these places. Trust is the new currency, which players can be trusted to keep my stuff private, deliver me relevant information and not over-deliver me information, sell me the appropriate stuff for my business, and be transparent with me. That's going to be really hard for media businesses to transition into. But I don't think there's any choice. That's the only real opportunity going forward, because if you're not delivering on those principles, you're in deep trouble, in our opinion. That is it.